achieved.
I know I've touched upon this before, but it's just worth noting again. I keep seeing these headlines about these shockingly low viewerships for major UFC events. It's not shocking. It's the way of the future. It's what's going to happen. The UFC had this time period where you had stars. You had guys, before it was the pay-per-view model where they were doing one pay-per-view every a month or two, and Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz and these guys were bringing in big names. And that kind of transitioned into a time period where we had our Anderson Silvas and George St. Pierre's, and then our Brock Lesnar's, Conor McGregor's, Ronda Rousey's, John Jones's, all those guys. And people were tuning in and watching that. And those are the type of names where you'd have your hardcore fans and your dedicated fans, and they'd tune in and watch. But also your larger group of casual fans would go, yeah, I checked that. I know who John Jones is. He's fighting. Okay, I'll watch that. But now what you're getting is the only people that are interested in these cards are your hardcores and your really dedicated individuals who want to watch good mixed martial arts. Your casual fan doesn't care about Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. They had a great scrap the first time, but this was a very, very good scrap this time. But the casual person doesn't tune in to watch that. And on top of that, what's happening is with the pay-per-view model, the UFC is hiding their talent from the general public. You better pay $65. You want to tune in and see our top-end fighters compete on a regular basis. Yes, we do our big Fox cards once in a blue moon, but people aren't going to pay that. And what they see is these other guys who on the fight nights. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But we don't get to see championship fights very rarely. We don't get to see a lot of these other big name fighters very rarely. And we're not developing that fan base. We're not showing them the best we have to offer, the best UFC has to offer. If you started putting regularly scheduled title fights and championship bouts and the highest quality fights on regular television, that is going to help get the word out there. And suddenly people start. I watched this, there's nothing else on TV. I threw on the fights and I watched it. It was a great scrap, and I might check it out in 2 weeks when it comes on again. Or they might even latch on to a fighter or two who they saw compete. And the UFC's, instigating their own demise. They're going to keep people expecting to pay $65 to come out and watch a pay-per-view, and there's going to be less and less people doing that. People don't tune in. If you watch Major League Baseball or the NHL, and suddenly, the Stanley Cup Finals, that's on pay-per-view. Sure, the fans of those specific teams might consider buying the pay-per-view to watch the games, but they're not going to tune in. The casuals aren't going to tune in like they would on regular TV. Same thing with the World Series, or even the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, because it's a one-off, might stand the best chance of using that format, but they don't, because they recognize general viewership. They want to make sure people have the easiest access to it, and that's what the UFC is missing out on. And I think if they don't make a change, it's going to be their downfall, because people are not going to give a shit about these, and the numbers are going to continue to go down, and it'll get to past a point of no return if we're not already there. They need to do a run and get those big fights on TV that people can see without having to spend money. That people can just, what's on television? We can watch a movie. There's a baseball game. Here's two, Hulk and Goliath beating the crap out of each other. Let's check that out. Maybe it's for me, maybe it's not. But I'm definitely not gonna watch it if I gotta pay $65. But I might watch it if it's free. I don't know. We'll see. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. On this episode of the show, we are breaking down the UFC 227 event, which will take place on August 4th from the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. It'll be featuring 5 main card fights, including not 1 but 2 title fight rematches, which I'll be breaking down for you on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks, as per usual, are available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I believe there are 7 now. And this card overall has lost some fights. We had the Volkan Ozdemir Alexander Gustafsson fight, which was definitely adding to it. When you look at this matchup, the lineup, when you put that as your third fight, your middle fight on the pay-per-view under the 2 title fights, it definitely makes things fall into place a little bit nicer. We also had Derek Brunson versus Antonio Carlos Jr., which is also a pretty damn good fight with some decent high quality fighters. Again, it's a little bit thin, but hey, we're still going to make it work. We're still going to make some cash off it. Now, I'm coming off a very, very good showing. UFC on Fox 30, I went 11-2. 11-2. I had a couple solid upsets, Jose Aldo and Dustin Ortiz. The only major transgression I had that night was I had OAM to win and I had Alexis Davis to win. I thought, Olivier Aubin-Mercier just plain got beat. I thought Alexis Davis beat herself. I thought she could have been given the nod. I thought a lot of people thought she was ahead by 2 rounds going into that last round, which was huge. But the fact that she attempted 1 takedown and used limited clinch attack against a girl who has struggled in those 2 areas, and you drop a decision, again, it's poor game planning. Just like Nick Hine a couple weeks ago. Shoot for takedowns. Take a guy down who's a terrible takedown defense and spends time on his back in all of his UFC defeats, and you don't do any of that, you deserve to lose. Either way, I went 11-2. My big bankroll bundle for my parlays won 41.13 units, which is was only a small profit when you compare profit and what you invested, but it's the big reward bundle that cashed in huge. 142 units. I won 3 massive parlays out of, I think I played 7 parlays altogether. I won 3 huge parlays. We turned a huge profit. And again, you can check out all the recaps and betting backpacks. They're all posted on my website, kamikazeoverdrive.net. Check those out. You will be able to purchase the bet pack for just $15. Again, I break down the entirety of the card, tell you what to play, what not to play, parlays, fantasy picks, prop bets, betting scenarios, which have backed up stats to show you how I've been doing, plus how the scenario has been doing in general. Again, all for $15, or the last 2 events of the summer. Last 2 events of the summer, this one and then the UFC Fight Night 135 event will be available probably for like $25. You'll save yourself $5 if you want to buy those 2 events. It's totally up to you. On that note, we got a lot of good fights to break down. Let's take a look at the first one. We open our night of predictions in the UFC's middleweight divisions. The 13th ranked Thiago Santos, 17-5-0, takes on the debuting Kevin Trailblazer Holland, 13 wins and 3 losses. Now, for me, this is a very odd fight for Santos. He had 4 wins going into his last matchup, including against a very solid group of fighters. Almost a solid group of fighters you could get without fighting any ranked opponents. Anthony Smith, Jack Hermanson, Gerald Mearshart, and Jack Marshman, all very tough, hard-nosed guys, and he finished. I think he finished all of them, yeah. He's 10-5 in his UFC run, and now he's facing a debuting fighter off the Contender Series, which is a very interesting change. Obviously, some fighters might like that and get a chance to get back in the win column, but hey, it's a big step backwards for Thiago, and a dangerous fight. For Holland, he comes into this matchup having won 4 consecutive. His last loss came back in, I think it was 2017 against Curtis Millender. He fought both in Legacy and Bellator, so it's not like he's a nobody. It's not like he's never fought anybody in any organizations, but still, he's a relative unknown still. Now, it's worth noting, he's 6'3". That's a big man for the middleweight division. He's 3 inches taller than Santos. He'll have a 5-inch reach advantage, and he's 8 years younger. So a lot of the physical stats in the new guy's favor. He fought just a month and a half ago in the Contender Series, and he's already fought 3 times in 2018, which is pretty good for him. And he, if things go well, he could sneak a 5th fight in there after this one. Looking at Holland first, when he fought in the Contender Series, he had a massive physical edge over his opponent. He was considerably taller, and he had an 11.5-inch reach advantage, and he was a major favorite in that fight. So he came in it with the expectations of winning. He went the distance, which is kind of odd to me. Because you don't see guys get contracts all the time coming off of decisions, especially when they're, I think he was minus 900, I want to say, in that range. For his pro career, 6 wins by knockout, 5 submission victories, 1 decision, 7 first-round finishes. He's been submitted once, and again, he's only 1-2 on the scorecards, so not a great record in prolonged fights. Now, the first thing of worth note when I watched his Contenders bout, he was doing a lot of talking during the fight, both to his opponent and to his corner, even acknowledging his opponent's fans. He threw a lot of unorthodox techniques. At times, he looked a little bit overconfident and was getting cracked with a couple of shots. So it's just very interesting. He has a black belt in Kung Fu, and you saw a lot of side leg kicks, some hard low kicks and push kicks. Not a lot of setup to his striking. He looked a little loose at times, but he was still landing with regularity. Again, some of that physical advantages he had certainly were adding to that. Now, on the flip side, his opponent, who again was quite short, was having success getting on the inside and cracking him and landing some big shots. We saw a few moments where there's some grappling exchanges where Holland had some success, not a ton, but again, he predominantly wanted to keep this fight standing. He threw a lot of spinning attacks when he was on his feet, limited success. He threw a flying knee. At times, he was rushing forward, which was actually negating his reach advantage, which was a little concerning when you get such a dominant reach advantage and suddenly you're putting yourself in a position to get hit so you can land your offense. When you go back to his prior engagements, for example, when he fought on Bellator, his Bellator win was predominantly spent on the mat. He was taken down, but he was able to sweep in a top position. It was one of those back and forth transitional battles, and attacking a triangle off his back. Again, it was one of those positions, and that's how he won the fight, with triangle. He didn't initiate the ground game, but once he got there, he showed he could react to the position and have success. And that's something worth noting because we know what Santos' background is. He's had some issues on the ground. Now, Thiago, the Brazilian, is an absolute killer. Offers that brutal kicking arsenal. He's dangerous in the clinch. His hands are showing improvements. I always consider them the weakest part of his offensive game, at least of his stand-up, but they're coming along nicely. He's got a myriad of kick-related stoppages on his resume. He's finished 5 straight opponents in the UFC, 5 straight UFC wins anyway. He's stopped 8 UFC opponents overall. So this guy's a killer when he's winning fights. One thing I like about Thiago, he does an excellent job of setting up his offense with his other attacks. He'll pummel his opponent's legs with low kicks to the point where he gets them reacting, and then boom, now he starts to come to the body, or he'll go to the body and then he'll start going to the head. He's one of these guys, he just attacks and attacks and attacks, but he's not doing it just mindlessly. It's to set something else up, and I really like the way he does that. Now on the flip side, he has been knocked out 3 times, and he's been submitted twice. When you look at his loss to Gegard Mousasi, he was knocked out in a transition when he was trying to get up from the mat. David Branch, though, did catch him along the cage in his last fight and knocked him out cold. So that's, his chin might be a little bit of a question mark, and that's something Holland might look to expose. Ultimately, I think the key to beating Santos is either grapple him or get in close and fight at close range and try and swarm him. Don't stand at range with him. Don't let him get his kicks off. That's crucial. When Anthony Smith fought Thiago, and we saw how good Anthony Smith's doing at heavyweight, and Thiago took him out, Smith made it incredibly ugly, and it nearly got him a huge victory, but he got actually finished himself. And that's something maybe Holland should look to do, but I just don't see it in Holland's style. Holland could look to take him down or try and rush him and overwhelm him. I think Santos is just too good for him to fight at range, stand and trade with. Holland seems a little bit lapsed defensively, a little bit loose with his offense. I think Santos is going to attack his legs and the body, eventually forcing Holland to start reacting to those kicks, like I mentioned previously. He'll start to cover up certain areas, which will open up other areas that Santos can target. And I'm guessing it's going to come by body kick. My prediction is Thiago Santos to defeat Kevin Holland by TKO. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the women's strawweight division as Polyana Viana, 10 wins and 1 loss, takes on JJ Aldrich with a current record of 6 wins and 2 defeats. This is an interesting fight to get bumped with the main card. Again, these two ladies are not exactly bringing in a lot of putting butts in the seats. No one's showing up to see Viana versus Aldrich as far as I know. At least that would be my guess. Again, nothing against them. They're good fighters. I'm very interested to see how this fight plays out. But again, Aldrich, 8 pro fights, 2-1 in the UFC. Viana, 11 pro fights, 1-0 in the UFC. I could see this on the prelims, but when you look at the prelims, there's not a lot to pick from down there either that could trump this matchup. Aldrich lost her debut to Juliana Lima. She's since beaten Chan Mi-Jion and Danielle Taylor. Pretty decent fights. I got both of those right, actually. Viana, she earned a submission in her debut. That was a perfect... It's always rewarding when you go back and you look at your prediction for a particular fighter, and then you watch that fight, and you're like, yeah, I got that one bang on. I wish that would happen more often. Both girls are 5'5", same 67-inch reach, and roughly the same age, so physically they match up fairly well. Aldrich is a southpaw. JJ, looking at her first 2 wins by knockout, 4-1 on the scorecard. She has 1 submission loss. For Viana, 4 knockout victories, 6 submission victories, her only loss coming on the scorecards. Also worth noting, Aldrich has gone 3 rounds in 5 or 8 UFC or pro bouts, while Viana has 9 of 11 fights ending inside the first round. Now, Viana first, she's a BJJ world champion back in 2015. She has won almost all of her fights by submission, arm bars, or rear naked chokes. Or almost all of her submission victories have been by rear naked chokes or arm bars. And it's worth noting her debut opponent had faced incredibly poor competition. I believe her debut opponent, the last 3 people she had taken on, had a combined record of 0-23, fighting at a Gladiator Challenge, which is certainly a questionable promotion. In that matchup, we saw Viana, use a nice head and arm throw to put the fight on the ground. She attacked off her back once she lost the position. She locked up a shoulder and then, started transitioning to that vaunted armbar that she'll attack with. She tried, she couldn't get it. She attacked with a darce once they were standing again, or depending on what you're looking at, power, ninja choke, whatever. Again, when they hit the mat, went for a guillotine. Again, rolled the top position. Eventually, she got to rear naked choke. And what I'm saying here is, look what she's doing. She's looking for that one opportunity to touch and tie up, and then she just starts chaining submissions together, and eventually you will make a mistake, and she will get you. She'll jump guard. She's incredibly active from that position. Again, she's always transitioning to different offensive holds and techniques, looking for something to stick. Now, she's not an overwhelming striker. We haven't seen a lot of her striking, even if you go back to her regional fights, but she's not wild and sloppy, and she keeps things fairly controlled, and she's looking for that opportunity to tie up. I don't mind at all what I saw on the feet from her. My bigger concern, though, is can she attack with those submission transitions and not slow down? With so many first-round finishes, that's a concern. Because you get some of these submission fighters, grapplers, who don't have the wrestling to rely on, and they start going for all these submissions that they normally get inside the first 5 minutes. They don't get them, and suddenly the second round creeps up, and they're tired, and now they're more willing to drop to their back and hope something falls in their lap and they can get the victory that way. And fighters, especially like a JJ Aldrich, who's a very good striker, says, no, stand up with me, and I'm going to box you up. And that's definitely a concern about a fighter that's based on ending fights via submission early in the round. And you look what Aldrich brings to the table. You know, she is a striker by trade, 98 significant strikes versus Gian, 54 versus Taylor. She has had issues with her takedown defense and grappling-based opponents previously. Against Lima, she gave up 4 takedowns. When she fought in the Ultimate Fighter, she was submitted by Tatiana Suarez in round 2. That was a quarterfinal matchup. So it's not like she's she has an area of vulnerability. But ultimately, if she's going to advance her career and move forward as a legit contender, she has to show she can handle good ground fighters. And well, that really hasn't been an issue in her last 2 fights. It will be here. She does move fairly well. Yeah, she moves well, throws a solid right jab and she'll come with a straight left. Doesn't have a ton of power, and that's my biggest issue here, is if she can't establish power and keep Viana backed up, that's going to create situations for the Brazilian to lock up and get this fight to the ground. Against Lima, she seemed completely stuck on her back and really had no answer for the grappling game. And ultimately, until Aldrich shows me she can survive off her back and get back up once she gets taken down against dedicated grapplers, it's hard to pick for her. Viana, I think she's going to walk forward, she's going to engage. She might even pull guard here and start attacking submissions. Again, that concern about her slowing down if she can't get that submission inside the first 7.5 minutes. Aldrich, again, her key would be to defend, hope she fades in rounds 2 and 3 and start, butt flopping and letting Aldrich pick her apart on the feet. But my prediction is Viana to defeat JJ Aldrich by submission. Fight number 3 in the main card takes place in the UFC's featherweight division as the 5th-ranked Cub Swanson, 25-8-0, returns to action against the 10th-ranked Renato Moicano with a current record of 12 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Now, Swanson comes in having lost a pair of fights to 2 top-ranked featherweights in the division in Frankie Edgar and Brian Ortega. He had won 4 consecutive prior to those defeats. And Cub's one of those guys, he reminds me of maybe Jim Miller from a number of years back, where he's going to be a top contender, he's going to beat the vast majority of lower-ranked guys, but he just can't get those elite victories to get himself a title shot, and then ultimately he'll start to slip, and that'll be the end of it. For Moicano, he lost to Brian Ortega, but he's rebounded. He rebounded with it was his first loss of his career. He rebounded with a win over Cater, and he's 4-1 in the UFC overall. Moicano, 3 inches taller than Cub. He'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger fighter by 6 years. Now, Swanson's been incredibly impressive, but again, he can't break through against the elite competition. He lost to Ricardo Lamas in his debut. He's 10-5 in the UFC overall, with other losses, 2 to Frankie Edgar, the Ortega defeat, and as I mentioned, Lamas. So again, he's fought and lost to top-level guys that he just can't seem to get through to get that big victory to put him in contention. Is Renato Moicano elite? He looked good against Ortega until he was finished. He had that split decision win over Jeremy Stephens we just saw compete. So he's beat some decent level guys. Is he elite? I don't know. This fight will go a long way to proving it. And the big thing with Moicano, he offers a different approach every fight, and that makes it very interesting when trying to predict what he's going to do. When he fought Ortega, he fought in the pocket and exchanged right there for the entire fight. Against Jeremy Stephens, he used distance and tried to keep on the outside and counter and avoid Stephens' big power. Against Calvin Kattar, he used a ton of leg kicks and just battered his legs, and that was his main focus. He also has a decent takedown game. We've seen him do that before. He'll catch kicks. He put Stephens down. He even took Ortega down at one point in that fight, which kind of a mistake at the end, and that was a desperation, but still he's capable of putting guys on the ground. And Swanson, he can be taken down. Artem took him down twice. Duho Choi took him down once. Kawajiri, who's a wrestler, took him down a trio of times. Frankie Edgar in their first matchup dominated him on the mat with 7 takedowns. Again, Swanson often gets taken down in his fights, and that's a major issue. He is good at getting back up, but against a wrestler who can hold him down, that creates problems. And usually when he gets taken down, he uses his volume to make up for those takedowns. In the Lobov fight, 209 significant strikes. Duho Choi, 111. Against Stephens, he landed 87. But the big issue here is Moicano's a better volume striker. He averages 1.7 more strikes per minute. So almost 2 strikes more per minute from Moicano over 15 minutes. That's a huge edge. That's almost 30 strikes more per minute, again, for those mathematologists out there. Per fight. And again, against Kattar, he was landing those brutal, hard leg kicks on Kattar's lead leg and really took away his movement, really did a lot of damage. Took his base out. He kept moving himself around the cage, forcing Kattar to chase him, so just magnified the impact of those leg kicks. If you're hurting someone and making them, taking away their mobility, and then on top of that, you're being mobile, it just magnifies everything you're doing. He has a decent left jab to help keep him at range. He's throwing a power right as well. He keeps moving, forces opponents to bounce around and chase him down, which if you're not prepared for that, that can be an issue. Now, Cub Swanson, the guy's a very good striker. He's an unorthodox striker at times. He seems to have calmed down a little bit with some of his unorthodox techniques. He's got technically sound boxing. He throws some higher risk kicks. He'll mix in some capoeira, a lot less now than he used to. But still, he's very capable on the feet. He has some power, but again, most of his knockouts have come against fighters with a history of getting knocked out. His last one coming at UFC 162 against Dennis Seaver. He has a tendency to hold his hands low, which creates different angles when attacking, also opens him up defensively. You know, when he fought Doo Ho Choi, he took a ton of shots in that fight in just a crazy back-and-forth brawl. Again, he showed great durability and toughness, but again, you don't want to be doing that too often, especially against a fighter who might not be willing to take the strikes and is better defensively, and if you're eating punches, that's going to add up. At times, he struggles under pressure, and he tends to cover up, and I don't like that. He goes backwards. You know, he had issues reaching Brian Ortega with regularity when they fought. Ortega's a longer fighter. You know, Cub was launching forward, throwing power, but again, coming up short when he was doing that. He does some of his best work with nice short punches on the inside, landing to the head and the body. Again, he needs to stay in the pocket, especially against a guy with a little bit of a reach and height advantage. That's going to increase his accuracy. It's going to increase his success rate. It's going to increase his ability to win a fight. At times, again, when he does push forward like that and try and cover distance, he opens himself up to being countered. He was getting cracked with some big shots when he was doing that. You know, he doesn't check leg kicks enough. I've seen guys land a lot of leg kicks on him. He just eats them, hoping they don't continue that technique. Overall, Moicano has more weapons. He fights longer. He lands more volume. He throws more variety. He could look at takedowns here in this fight to add on to his offense that he's already piling up. You know, Cub will need to land either a big shot either early to knock him out or at some point to win rounds, hurt him badly, and get him off his game plan. He needs to turn this fight into an ugly, ugly brawl to be successful as far as I'm concerned. I don't think he will. And my prediction is Renato Moicano to defeat Cub Swanson by decision. We move now to the first of our two title fight rematches. Our first taking place in the UFC's flyweight division as the champion, the only flyweight champion UFC has ever known, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. 27 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Takes on the former title challenger, now current title challenger, and #1 ranked fighter in the division, the messenger, Henry Cejudo, also an Olympic gold medalist, if I missed that. He comes with a record of 12 wins and 2 losses. Now, this is a rematch from way back in 2016. Doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was. UFC 197, DJ won by TKO in the opening round, which caught a lot of people off guard. Since that fight, Johnson has beat Timothy Elliott, Wilson Hayes, and Ray Borg, submitting the last 2 in impressive fashion. And he's won 13 consecutive fights overall. The last time he didn't win a fight was that draw in the original semifinal bout with him and Ian McCall, which was very interesting. And it's crazy to see the trajectory, those two guys' trajectory difference. You know, Johnson winning the next fight they fought and going on to do what he's done. Ian McCall obviously spiraling down to, you know, how he's fighting in Ryzen. All the best to him, but it's just not relevant anymore, unfortunately. Cejudo, that was the first loss of his career when he lost to DJ. He's then followed it up with a controversial split decision loss against Joseph Benavidez in a fight he could have very easily won had he not had a point taken away. He since has back-to-back wins over Wilson Hayes, who he knocked out, and Sergio Pettis, another key, a fighter who's on the rise, who just beat Benavidez. Physically, Cejudo 1 inch taller. DJ will have 2 inches of reach. Cejudo is the younger fighter by 1 year. Now, when you look at these people, DJ is by far the most dominant and successful champion the UFC's ever seen, as far as I'm concerned. No one's gone as long as he has and won fights like he has by any stretch of the imagination. So everybody wants to know, when's he going to fall? When's he going to lose? He still hasn't become complacent. He's still improving and adding to his game and showing focus and intensity, which, hey, you have to be like that to do what he's done. It is hard and difficult to beat an opponent twice, but not impossible. He beat Ian McCall in the rematch. He stopped Joseph Benavidez in their rematch. He beat John Dodson in that rematch. So again, he's fought guys twice before and he's had success against them. Has Cejudo improved since their last fight? That's important. Was that fight too short to see the extent of his skill set and see how it matched up with Johnson? I would argue it was, and he certainly would argue it was. And Cejudo has said in the media, yeah, I didn't get a chance to bring my wrestling to bear. I got stopped before I got to really show him what I was capable of. But Demetrious Johnson's counter was saying, that fight ended way before I could bring my full skill set to bear, before I could bring my cardio game and my pressure game into the championship rounds and show this guy what it's all about. So again, tit for tat in that scenario. The stats from that first fight, Johnson landed him 21-6. Cejudo did land 1 takedown, which was pretty impressive to take Johnson down the way he did. And just the general breakdown of how that fight played out. Cejudo came up pressuring early. He was forcing DJ to back up. And when DJ engaged, he tied up immediately. He wasn't looking to strike and get out. He was looking to tie up and lock up. Both guys were landing knee strikes, kind of trading shots. DJ separated and landed a right hand. But again, despite the fact he broke, it led to more clinching later on and more knees. We did see Cejudo land a snap takedown from that position. Again, DJ did a good job of using his feet to pop him off. I don't think he had butterfly guard. He just kind of pressed him off and got back up, which was super important to see him stand up from a Cejudo takedown. You know, the Olympic gold medalist wrestler. If you can't take him down, if he can't score takedowns, it takes away one of his key weapons. Ultimately, though, DJ kept going back to the clinch, landing knees to the body, and it appeared that his game plan was to make him work and kill that cardio with knee strikes and just workload. He hurt him to the knees. Hurt him to the body with knee strikes later on. Started working knees to the head, rocked him, finished him with another knee to the body, and follow-up strikes. And that's, in a nutshell, how that fight went. DJ, I give him the cardio edge over Cejudo big time. Cejudo has a history of bad weight cuts. He's got it under control recently, but again, he's never fought 5 rounds. His cardio could still be compromised in the later fights, in the later rounds of a fight. For DJ, in that first matchup, I think he and his camp felt he could push. It's almost like that secretariat approach. When he was being pushed by some of his contenders, and the one horse's name is eluding me at this point in time. The thought process was, in the final race, we're going to push him hard, and he's going to run out of gas before he can get to the finish line, because he will run hard, not realizing what he's not capable of. And I think DJ looked at Cejudo and said, you know what, I'm going to clinch you, and you're going to be comfortable in that clinch because you're a wrestler and you like that position, but I'm going to keep working. And while you might be able to do it for 2 or 3 rounds, you can't do it for 5. And I'm going to keep working hard, and you're going to willingly do it and accept that position, and before you know it, you're going to get tired, and I'm not. And I think that's really something that the DJ looked at. They have a good job. They do a good job in that camp, gaming for fights and preparing. How does Cejudo win this matchup? He needs takedowns and top control, as far as I'm concerned. Keep DJ close, land with power, and make sure you don't overextend yourself at any point in time where you can't recover. Cejudo's striking's come a long way. He's shown he can hurt and finish opponents. Can he catch them? That's a great question. I don't know. I don't think he can. DJ can be taken down, but he's shown he can get back up. Will Cejudo's cardio hold up? I don't think it will. If he's getting takedowns and DJ is getting back to his feet, Cejudo might be able to do it for a round or 2, maybe even 3, but I think, we're going to see DJ start to outpoint him and as the fight goes on the feet. I think Johnson just needs to win one of the first 3 rounds to take this fight. He'll take over in the championship rounds if it goes that far. When Johnson faces a takedown-oriented fighter, he uses volume. I think that'll be his key here. We've seen that in the past. Distance, he used clinch in the first game. Do not expect him to do the same thing here. He's going to use he's going to use movement and leg kicks and pick away with shots and make Cejudo chase him and defend those takedowns, and realize he'll probably give up some early. Again, when long first fights, the rematch usually goes short. I'd say this first fight was short. This one goes long. My prediction is Demetrious Johnson defeat Henry Cejudo by decision. In the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's bantamweight division for another fantastic rematch as the champion TJ Dillashaw, 16-3-0, takes on the former champion and #1 ranked Cody No Love Garbrandt, 11 wins and 1 loss. And it's because of that 1 loss is why we're here. This is the rematch from UFC 217, which was fought in November 2017. TJ won by 2nd round knockout, and again, it continued to build and flesh out that rivalry between TJ Dillashaw and his former camp team Alpha Male. Still a lot of bad blood between these two that it could be solved here. I don't know. It was Garbrandt's first title defense after upsetting and ending the reign of the most dominant divisional champion, Dominic Cruz. It was the first loss of his career. Overall, he's 6-1 in the UFC. So a big fight, the first one was. This one will be as well. For TJ, he lost his title to Cruz in Cruz's return. Turned around and beat Rafael Santos and John Lineker, 2 guys that not very many people are beating at this point right now. And then taking Cody Garbrandt, a guy no one had beat at that point, and just took out Cruz in impressive fashion, defeated him, and everybody went, wow, that was awesome. And then TJ takes the title from him. Overall, TJ 11-3 in the UFC. That's very impressive. Cody, 2 inches taller. TJ will have a 2-inch reach advantage, and Garbrandt is the younger man by 5 years. Now, looking at the first fight, their stats, TJ outlanded him 20-18, but some of those 20 strikes were added on with the ground and pound against a very prone and almost finished Cody Garbrandt. TJ 0-for-1 in takedown attempts. Garbrandt didn't land a single one. Again, looking at that fight, how it breaks down, lots of movement from TJ, up and down, in and out. He looked very calm, while Cody looked wired, looking very tight and ready to unload and score that knockout in the first opening moments. The first major exchange, Cody launched forward with combinations off of a TJ kick. And that's when they first really started to mix it up and started to let go. Cody was doing a good job moving away and staying out of range. And for the most part, I felt TJ was struggling to find his range. Cody was avoiding and looking to counter. And what we ultimately saw in that first round was Cody landing that big left hand at the end of round 1, and TJ very well could have been saved by the bell. He appeared to be badly hurt, and had Cody had another minute or so to go after him, even 30 seconds even, he could have possibly finished that fight, retained the title, and we're not here in this position today. In the second round, Cody came out, and you could see his confidence was buoyed a little bit by that success. He was goofing around at times, put his hands up. TJ seemed a little more flat-footed, loading up on his strikes, looking to land offense, and then we saw, boom, TJ lands that high kick that dropped him round 2, and Dwayne Ludwig in his corner said, you need to throw more kicks. He's boxing, you need to do more of what you do well, and the head kick dropped Cody and really changed that fight. And, TJ showed he had more weapons, and that weapon was huge in that scenario. And that was cruel. That was crucial. TJ, used a lot of good footwork to get in and out, and eventually drop Cody to finish that fight and with the ground and pound to win the title. So again, both guys had their big moments, and you wonder in this situation who makes changes, who goes in and alters what they do in preparation for the rematch. Cody looked good up until getting knocked down and knocked out. TJ got hurt early, not landing a ton of offense, but he got the victory. So I would say it's hard to say who's more prone to make change and alterations. Maybe they come in and do what they do and see what comes of it. I would say TJ was saved by the bell again, so that's worth noting. Had Cody landed in the middle of the round and knocked him down then, he could have ended the fight right there, very similar to what TJ did to him in round 2. When you look at their skill sets, Cody has good boxing, he's got good foot and head movement, and he's got power. But TJ, on the other side, he's got good hands himself, but he has that far superior kicking offense. He does a better job disguising it, landing it, and mixing it in with his offense. His footwork's also good. It's not nearly as good as a lot of people think it is. I think it's a little bit overrated. But he has also the wrestling edge. Cody's a good wrestler. He's got a high school background, but I think TJ has the advantage with wrestling and grappling. He's also a capable submission fighter. Once TJ started to vary his attack in that fight, he started to find success. And over a longer fight, TJ lands more strikes. He's more active. And he has the ability to land more takedowns. I think that's crucial, that those pile up. Just like in the first fight, I think this matchup could turn either way with one strike. A head kick, a big power shot strike, it could go to either man's favor. But I think the action overall favors TJ as the bout advances. I give him a cardio edge, and again, his variety and work rate are crucial here. I think TJ is going to kick more early in this fight. He's going to go to his wrestling at times. He's going to land more volume. He's going to avoid that big shot. And very similar to what I said in the last fight, when you see a big fight, big matchup go, an epic 5 rounds, it's often ended the next time in the rematch quickly. This one ended in the first 2 rounds. I think we're going the distance here, and my prediction is TJ Dillashaw to defeat Cody Garbrandt by decision. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 227. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net, as well as my bet packs. We're coming off. We've had huge nights, 2 of my last 3 cards. And again, the one we missed it by 1 fight, basically. So we've been on top of things. Again, I'm unorthodox with my betting, but it produces results, and that's all we can ask. Check me out on Twitter at KO_predictions. I'm on Facebook as well. YouTube, I'm closing in on 2,000 subscribers. We'll get there eventually. It's no big deal to me. It's a lot of fun what I do. And again, thank you very much for tuning in, sending me messages. I like talking with people as much as I can. Again, if you have any issues when you're buying the bet packs, hit me up with an email, and make sure you check your junk mail. I've had a number of people who've contacted me, and then I send a message to them, and then I hear back from them that I'm not contacting them. It's like, check your junk mail. I try and respond right away. And if I don't respond right away, I make it up to you later on. I do the best I possibly can. Again, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will talk to you very soon. Take care.